My name is Chris Horn. I'm the VP of Solution Architecture here at ROVE. And I had the opportunity to join and go to DellEMC World a couple weeks ago now, and want to give you guys a good update. I think this will be a bit of a whirlwind. I've only got 30 minutes to recap 4 days of jam-packed content and many, many sessions. So if there's any questions at the end, we can put them in the chat room. Hopefully I'll leave a few minutes for questions, and we can always follow up with you later. So let's go ahead and get started. DellEMC World again this year in Vegas. It's the first time they've really combined both events there with Dell and EMC World together in one area. They had a Dell World down in Austin in August of last year, which I attended, a much smaller event, but this is the first combined event of both companies. About 13,500 attendees, 122 different unique countries. The furthest person to follow was a gentleman from Zimbabwe. Wow, that's a heck of a flight to get there. Can't imagine how many connections from Zimbabwe to Las Vegas, but it took him 9,964 frequent flyer miles to get over to Vegas. That's quite a trip. So pretty interesting there. So first thing I'll go through just kind of the keynotes from each day. I'll give a little bit of detail, and then I'll dive into the individual product items that were discussed in each individual keynote. This one being the first day's keynote. It started at 10 a.m. on Monday. So first off was just Michael Dell talking about the future of digital trends and where we're going. I always enjoy hearing Michael speak. I've had opportunity to meet him a few times. Really sharp guy, very down-to-earth guy, very good speaker. Didn't really even look at the teleprompters as he was presenting. He's a great speaker as he goes through a lot of interesting discussions around virtual reality, deep machine learning, just where things are going in this space with predictive analytics and all sorts of cool stuff that we're going towards. So Karen was only on very, very quickly. Most of the other session was taken up by Dave Goulden, who kind of introduced them as guests, both Karen and Diane of the event. Dave Goulden, if you know him, was pretty much second in charge at EMC back in the day. I think if they had stayed alone, you know, he would have picked up and taken over for Joe Tucci as a retirement. Also a very good speaker. Introduced a lot of new products and methodology. Anything from their partnership with Azure Stack, which is pretty interesting. I'll talk about that a little bit later, to their AWS partnerships, the VirtuStream stuff, also Enterprise Hybrid Cloud in a box, and then some rough touch on product announcements. The 14G servers. It's always, as a legacy Dell EMC guy, EMC guy in particular, I'm still getting used to the concept of discussing servers, but obviously it's a big part of Dell's portfolio, and the introduction of the 14G server at this event was a big item. That server probably won't be shipping until the fall time. It takes advantage of the new Intel Core i9 server or Xeon processors. I believe, you know, that's going to be shipping here in the fall, later time. Actually, around 24 cores per processor. Pretty crazy where we're getting there. So some cool stuff they're doing with the 14G server set. Also, one of the bigger announcements was the VMAX All-Flash 950F. I'll go into some detail about that a little bit later. They made some refinements to the Unity platform around All-Flash. Adding the ability to have a 256 terabyte file system natively for NAS, as well as some density improvements. Also, this is another item I'm still kind of getting used to with the whole merger, but the Compellent 5000 series was announced. They're still making investments in that Compellent portfolio going forward. It seems to be, you know, something in between the Unity and VMAX as far as a storage platform goes. Still learning a little more on that myself as we go. So again, the XTREMIO was a big announcement. The X2 platform, really crazy density in that new platform. I'll go into more details on that a little bit later here. And also the new announcement around ISILON, all flash, and the scale of the ISILON platform as it goes. So the other part, or day two presentation, was with Jeff Clark and Pat Gelsinger. Unfortunately, Jeff wasn't able to make it. I don't know if he was out for personal reasons. The gentleman who's the CMO for DellEMC, who was also the CMO for EMC, he filled in. He did a great job. If anybody knows Jeff, he's a great speaker. I had an opportunity to meet him down in Austin last August. He, again, it's a new world for us, but he heads up their client solutions, which is all the desktops, monitors, screens, end-user devices in the Dell portfolio. They've been growing enormously in that space with the introduction of the XPS platform. I know half of ROVE uses those little laptops, the XPS 13, great little boxes. They introduced some wireless charging in that XPS platform. And then one other part they introduced was I think it's a 37-inch monitor. It can be split in 6 displays. It's really targeted at the trading application, but I can't say I wouldn't want one on my desk. It's pretty cool platform there. So then Pat Gelsinger split that session on day 2 and talked a lot about hybrid IT, Internet of Things. He brought on people like Nike, Daiquiri Eyewear, using virtual augmented reality to do design work, some pretty cool stuff around how Nike uses those Daiquiri headsets with VMware software to really change how they do some of their design work in an augmented virtual reality. Still some pretty cool stuff being developed there. I think a lot of industry will take advantage of that going forward, but some really cool things. The last session on Wednesday was a kind of a hodgepodge of folks speaking of different things, mostly forward-facing product sets. Jeremy Burton led this. Chad Sakic was on there, who is now in charge of the converged platforms. That's VX Block and VX Rail. We had Beth Phelan, who was previously over the VMAX division, is now over the data protection division. She talked about a combined data appliance. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And Jeff Bordeaux talked a little bit more about the VMAX platform, the 950F, and what that meant. So I'll dive more into these. This was sort of an NDA session. Really isn't much online about this part here, but you can Google on Chad Sakic and find some tidbits of things that he showed there. It's always an entertaining theatrical session with him involved there with Jeremy. I always like what they do with the Women Advocate and Women in IT luncheon. I didn't attend this, but I have some friends there that are part of it. They do a lot of great stuff to support and advocate for women in IT there. They do a lunch and learn. It's very well attended across different organizations. I think they had close to 1,000 folks, different women that are involved in different IT organizations or part of leadership in different IT organizations. So pretty cool stuff they do there to support that luncheon. They do it every year. They had some breakout daily guru sessions. John Reese is the CTO. He was the CTO of EMC, is now CTO of the combined DellEMC. I personally have the benefit of attending his sort of directional boards. I meet twice a year with his group and talk about strategy and direction of the companies, get a lot of foresight into where they're going. John's a great guy, very educated, really understands and has been involved in a lot of advanced technology development, good leader for the combined organization. Talked about, again, some of the deep machine learning, virtual reality, predictive analytics, things that are happening there going forward. Shrek Brock is a professor at Caltech. He's also on that board panel with me. He is actually the inventor of XTREMIO, always an interesting guy to talk to. He's now sort of taken an advisory role for the combined DellEMC organization as XTREMIO has morphed into its own kind of animal and taken off as a billion-dollar organization. So he's always a great guy to learn for. Still has kind of maintained his foot in the professor or the sort of the teaching aspect of it in Caltech, and interested to see what his next endeavor is and development there. It's always good to pick his brain. So those guru sessions, I think, are online. They're good to talk about. It's definitely way forward-facing, probably stuff that's 3, 5, maybe even 10 years out as the technology evolves. Folks here talked about, again, a lot of augmented reality. Tim Sweeney, who's the founder and CEO of Epic Games, if anybody's familiar, Epic Games is actually in Raleigh, North Carolina. Always cool to go to their campus and see what they're doing. But VR and augmented reality is obviously a huge advancement in their space, and how they're partnering with Dell to take advantage of those advancements. And what they're doing with games, sometimes it's just crazy. You feel like you're right there in the middle of everything that's going on. So some cool stuff, and Tim's always is cool to talk to if you're a geek or game head. Always good to listen to him. That session's also online. You can take a look at that and get some more detail from him. There were almost, like I said, again, this is a bit of a power session here, but there's about 500 breakouts. What I found this year that was nice, if you have a Dell, you can go sign up for a DellEMC World Log-On. You can get access to the majority of these 500 breakout sessions, either in the deck format. They're available. You can download the decks via PDF and go through them. I would say about half of the sessions are recorded, so you can download and video of those sessions. So anything from, code development, hybrid cloud, SAP stuff, VirtuStream, any of the technology tracks are pretty interesting. So I encourage you to kind of go out there. If you don't have a registration, it's easy to sign up. Lots and lots of good content out there. Too much for me to summarize 500 breakout sessions here. All I can really give is the highlights as we go through this. The Solutions Expo, massive this year, 135 exhibits, lots of new faces on the floor for me, meaning, companies that were partnered with Dell before the merger are now on the floor. A lot of stuff around, obviously, end-user devices, end-user accessories, lots of cool stuff. They always do a good display, lights up a lot of good ideas. Of course, 8 million different tchotchkes to take home for the kids if you're up for that. But it was packed every day. Had a lot of good folks on the floor, a lot of good folks to talk to, interactive displays, some pretty cool stuff out there. Also, the Village, this is always pretty neat. They added a few things this year, I think. The Village, I don't know how big it is, but it takes up pretty much the forefront of a lot of the SANS Expo there. In there, they'll have, music. The hands-on labs are there. They'll have some beanbag chairs, thousands of beanbag chairs that you can sit down and, watch the keynotes from. It's always a good hangout area. There's a EMC Select Lounge, an alumni lounge in there. The Partner Connection Lounge is in there. They did some of these augmented reality games were available. They did drone racing in there. That was kind of cool. So a lot of neat stuff to kind of do and see there in the Village if you were able to attend. So some of the press release announcements that were done, I'll run through these real quickly, and then I'll go into the highlight details of them. But these are basically a summary of everything that was released there, right? So services around maintenance pricing framework for applications, a lot of stuff around data protection, cloud announcement, tiering to cloud, data domain update, I'll go through that more, data protection suite, and enterprise code data analytics. So taking your backup data and getting a lot of detailed information around that for, could be forensics, could be just, understanding what you're backing up, why you're backing it up, making better decisions about where you're backing up your data and those kind of things. We talked about the Unity update. I'll go into that more. The Compellent 5020, SCALEIO 3.0 added a bunch of functionality. Again, I'll go into that. They discussed VxRail 4.5, data protection for the XC series servers, X series Nightfly server, it's upcoming, and the XC430 Express. Pivotal Cloud Foundry comes delivered on the XC server, and the next-gen CI, or based on VX block hyperconverged platform in the vBlock. And then also some updates on networking. This is also a new realm for me, being in the DellEMC world. There are lots of stuff they're doing on the OpenStack side of networking that's interesting. Never done much with the DellEMC switches, but some of the stuff they're doing with the OpenStack and OpenShift platforms are pretty cool, and we'll talk a little more about that later. I mentioned earlier the 14G servers, Infinity All Flash, X2, the ISILON All Flash, and the ISILON 1FS 8.1, which supports, I think, one file system up to 3 petabytes. That's pretty crazy. The 950F, of course, the ECS 4.0 platform, SCALEIO 3.0, and I mentioned the Azure Stack stuff, giving you both on-prem Azure as well as seamless migration to Azure or Microsoft Azure in the cloud. Pretty cool stuff there, that they're doing, and we at ROVE are hoping to get on the betas for that platform and do some work to show you how you can leverage your Azure Stack on-site and off-prem seamlessly. The DellEMC Integrated Data Appliance, which has essentially, networker, Avamar, data domain, all bundled into one appliance, shipped as one integrated unit, which supports obviously a multitude of backup appliances or backup, devices, anything from mainframes to virtual environments. Haven't spent too much time with this, but looking forward to what they're doing with that. Comes in a couple different flavors, also available for detail on the DellEMC World site as far as specs go. All right, so from the keynotes, we've got some product announcements here. So the first one, again, being servers. The big announcement was the PowerEdge 14G servers. They've done a lot with the cooling and density, packing in, a ton of NVMe as we move to kind of all flash compute environments in these servers. Also, just ramping up your density to get your denser clouds, denser compute. I mentioned 24 core CPUs in the Intel i9 servers or i9 processors that's coming out. That's a big, hinge in this that Dell's counting on in the PowerEdge servers. Scalable, 50% more users per system, so the density is really going up. That has to do with the amount of memory you can get in these servers as well as the cores that you can do there. It's incredible, the density that we're getting, the number of virtual machines we can get on these servers. We're able to get, hundreds now of virtual machines or virtual desktops on individual servers where we were more like a 25 to 1 or 50 to 1 at max in the past. Easily we can get 100 to 1 or even more on these newer servers. And, just some of the improvements they're doing around their call home, service remediation. They're wrapping logistics, better logistics around supporting it and making it more resilient for part replacement and those kind of things. All right, so, the PowerEdge will really look peripherally, I think, through the DellEMC portfolio where in the past they had used things like Supermicro for VxRail. That'll primarily be, Dell PowerEdge servers now. Things like ECS will be Dell's PowerEdge servers. Things like SCALEIO also will land. You'll see Dell PowerEdge SCALEIO nodes ship. With units right from the factory. Some pretty cool stuff going on there. All right, so storage, we mentioned it. Across the portfolios, high-end, mid-range, unstructured, some big announcements there. The 950F, 68% more IOPS. Obviously, that derives from from flash drives, but they've jammed a tremendous amount of cache, terabytes of cache up front. As anybody knows in the storage world, the more data you can keep in cache, the faster it can read and write it. So, these units can get up to 2 or more terabytes of cache, which is just insane these days. For it, 30% faster response times. We're down to less than half a millisecond response times in this platform. We used to only see that in XTREMIO, but they've gotten that into the VMAX pretty well, as well as reducing the footprint, just getting bigger SSD drives. I think we're up to 7.74 terabyte SSD drives in this box, which is insane. But the capacities, you can get much smaller footprint with this new box. Big announcement around the X2. I mentioned the density here. Really cool stuff around the density, right? So they've now extended this full shelf width. You can get something like 480 terabytes logical in 2U. they've also taken and finally moved the UPS on board with this unit, so no more external UPSs. The only thing that's external now in this box is basically InfiniBand switches, which control the communication between the nodes in the cluster. That's really all the external stuff. It's all internal now in this box, and again, it's double, triple density. They did scrap the NAS add-on for this. They decided not to go forward with it, so it'll be just your speed beast, any kind of database workloads. They improved a lot of the snapshot technology around the database workloads, which is great. Integration or native integration with RM, Replication Manager, in here, and some other cool stuff gives you really great control over those databases like SQL and Oracle. So I mentioned 3 times higher the capacity, much more efficiency. They upgraded the processors, more memory in the processors as well, or in the engines. So you've got much more efficiency there, much more performance. If anybody's familiar with XTREMIO, it keeps all of its metadata in the table. More memory in the control stations allows us to keep more metadata in that table. Therefore, we're going to get much more efficiency and performance out of it. They changed the block size a little bit, made it a little bigger, which also improves the performance, especially around databases like SQL, those kind of things, and reduced the cost overall using higher density drives, 3.4 terabytes and 7.74 terabyte drives available in X2. SCALEIO, SCALEIO 3.0 or .NEXT, the real cool stuff is this shipping natively installed and configured already on PowerEdge servers with NVMe RAM. They've added some functionality and support for NVMe with those 14G servers. So you'll start to get, really fast performance there with its, storage as memory basically, up to 1,000 nodes in a pool, and they've added compression support, which is something they definitely needed to add in XTREMIO to make the efficiencies and the economy make more sense. But if you're looking for a scale-out sort of object-based data store or data center, SCALEIO is always something, to take a look at. I would say it's still a work in progress. I'm encouraged by what they're doing around the PowerEdge servers and NVMe, finally adding the compression support, but this is definitely a software-defined, maturing technology as we go forward, and I think in the future here, things will kind of lead to that, and they'll perfect all of this, and we'll kind of lead with some of that in the SCALEIO platforms. All right, so I mentioned the Unity stuff, DellEMC Unity All Flash. That's not a new thing. We've had the All Flash. What the difference is some improvements in the file system performance, as well as just the support for bigger drives so we can get more density, again, 7.4. And then I think we're going to be supporting 15.4 terabyte drives in this box very, very soon. I think they said by late summer, and that's incredible density, and something like a 2U shelf, incredible, the size of the flash drives. So 8 times more density with those bigger drives, 4 times larger file system capacity, and of course if anybody's worked with Unity, a very easy out-of-box install experience, very easy to get that thing up and going through a GUI. Working with the VMAXs in the past, we all know it took a bit of time. This is a much easier platform to install, works really well, 10 minutes out of the box. I mentioned the SC520, really affordable, cost efficient. It's a natively hybrid, built on the Dell platform. It's something to look forward here. I'm still learning myself, honestly, about the Compellent platform. I need to spend more time with that, but they're continuing to support that and develop it for those existing Compellent. I think it does have a good niche there in the middle. It's very scalable, it's very upgradable, and does very well with the tiering of data in a hybrid flash array. So they added 2 times more capacity, improved the performance and lowered the cost. Always good stuff there. Looking forward to get my hands on one of these and just kind of seeing what it's all about. Again, not having much experience with the Compellent platform coming from a legacy DellEMC. ISILON, we've been waiting for this for quite a bit here, just the all-flash platform, next generation of ISILON, adding more performance to the nodes, 6 times the IOPS now, 40 gig cards, 25 gig cards, so lots more throughput, a lot more density with the flash platform now. We can, reduce the space, double density, full rack with drive trays with this unit now, and some really good stuff. And again, I mentioned 3 petabyte file system size. Pretty amazing stuff there, but always suited well for object-based, data lakes, unstructured data. Not really great for running, general workloads, those kind of things. But any of your unstructured data out there, which is, by the way, most of the growing data in our environments is around unstructured, so it's a great platform to consolidate that and give it enterprise supportability. So they've refreshed across all the platforms here. And I mentioned the data protection, integrated protection appliance, shipping with all 3 of the, technologies that you used to buy as one, integrated all into one device, shipping as one box. Obviously, it's a faster deployment if you don't have to install and configure it that way. Data domain always gets great dedupe, but they've improved it in the new platform, and it's wrapped around with one single management interface, truly, not lipstick on a pig. It's really a great new interface for this data protection appliance. Looking forward to seeing more about this as it comes out and rolls out in midsummer. 150 petabyte support in the cloud, so tiering to the cloud, native support for backup apps to Azure, AWS, VirtuStream, and we can do DR very easily to public clouds through this new data protection appliance. I mentioned the networking here. They're doing a lot around open networking. They launched their OS 9 open software-defined networking based on the OS 10 from the Linux Foundation, and supporting, things around Cumulus networks. Always a big fan of those guys. IP Fusion, Big Switch, what VMware's doing there with NSX. It's a pretty decent platform if you're looking to do OpenStack type deployments. It's a great little switch for that, cost effective, and looking forward to some more development work happening and how that integrates into things like the Azure Stack platform, as well as some of the other OpenStack initiatives that they're doing. So they announced this switch, which was the S5100. It's the industry's first 25 gigabit Ethernet open network switch, so open, OpenStack, OpenShift type network switch. 25 gig is kind of the next intermediate step, or less or more cost-effective jump over 40 gig going forward. All right, so we're getting close to our wrap-up here. Just got a couple more minutes. A couple of things for our customers on the line around flexible models, flexible consumption models. With Dell and EMC being a private company now, the financial stuff is changing in how they do, deals or flex or cloud-based models for customers going forward. They can do some unique pay-as-you-grow type scenarios, really giving you a cloud cost model for some different things. Obviously, not having to report to the street gives them some flexibility and some options. Some cool stuff around the TLAs, which is basically an enterprise license agreement. But the variable usage stuff was some of the things I'm most encouraged about, sort of the flex on demand. Really neat things they're doing around HCI flex on demand. So, get HCI in the door, sort of pay, a monthly consumption model on it. It's only a 12-month commitment. You're not signing up for a lease or anything along that lines. You can add or retract around hyperconverged as needed. The Cloud Flex utility is truly a scalable, model. They'll give you a, certain amount. Let's say you need 40 terabytes of, flash on the floor. They'll give you the 40 terabytes, probably give you a little bit more, won't charge you for it, and you sort of call back every month and get an amended, pay model based on that. So it's truly giving you sort of a cloud-based scenario. Again, it's not a lease. You're not signed up for a long-term, finance item. Again, being a private company now, there's some unique things they can do around these flex and consumption models. So look forward to those over the year as those mature out. We're out talking to customers about it. Takes a little bit of time to get your head wrapped around it because it's so different, but I'm encouraged about them being able to give sort of cloud costing models to our customers to make things a little smoother as you grow, also not looking at those big every 3 or 4 year refreshes, sweep the floor refreshes. You can kind of grow or pay as you go type scenarios. All right, so thanks for your time today, and we look forward to joining more of these as we go forward.